This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
What's up, Emmys?
And we are back for another edition of the Onside Kick right here on Most Valuable Podcast, where we talk about, Mark, the best and the biggest news in the NFL. We're kind of continuing our, I think as of right now, we're officially halfway through our season previews.
Yeah.
I think we have two divisions
entered the
down.
second half.
We have the East and the North completely finished. You guys can go and check that out. We're going to start the South today, then do the West in about 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right?
that's how it works.
This week, next week, and then we'll start the West. But in this one, we got a special topic to start you off. However, before we get to that, I got a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning of this podcast. First off, if you want to help support MVP more so than you already do by liking, subscribing, watching, go check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you join the $10 tier, you get to join a podcast each and every month and talk about what you would like to talk about with us on any of the podcasts for MVP. Also, go check that store link down below in the description. You can also get it at mostvaluablepodcast.com to get yourself. I'm not wearing it today, but I always do like the shirt show.
Well, you're demonstrating what a shirt would be.
Yeah, what a shirt. The logo.
This is a
right
T-shirt.
Here.
It's not an MVP T-shirt. It's a T-shirt.
For my
so you know.
For my audio listeners, it's right in the middle of the chest. I always just put up the logo when I wear it, but you can get that down below in the description or at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can also catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, if you have Apple Podcasts, you have iTunes, make sure to go over and give the Onside Kick a 5-star rating and let us know why you like listening to the podcast each and every week. But Mark, we're going to start before we get into the AFC South. We're going to take the AFC South. We're going to push it over to the side of the table. We're going to keep it over here.
Yep.
It's going to be on simmer on our stove because we got a news story that we got to get into before we get into the AFC South, and that is the Le'Veon Bell. I'm calling it a saga. The Le'Veon Bell saga. We've talked about this before. What's going to happen? Is he going to get a long-term extension with the Steelers? Is he going to stay with the Steelers? Well, the deadline for a long-term deal has now passed. It was Monday of this week. Now Le'Veon Bell does not have a long-term deal. It is likely, from his agent, that 2018 will be his last year as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I'm going to ask you, Mark, right out of the gate, and this might be a little extreme, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Will Le'Veon Bell ever play for the Steelers again?
I don't think it's an extreme question, and don't yell at me in the comment section just yet.
I say extreme because I'm assuming he's going to play at some point this year.
I would assume so too, but what I've said all offseason is that Le'Veon Bell himself said he will not play without a long-term contract.
He won't play under the tender.
So what that essentially means is that he's either telling the truth or he's lying in that case, and sure, whatever, there's gray area in between. But if you want to really, really believe what Le'Veon Bell said, that he will not play without an actual deal, then yes, he's done with the Steelers. Because what we're assuming is that he's gone after this year, right? Now, realistically, he's not that dumb. He's not going to sit out an entire year at 27 years old, when running backs make it to 30. So he's got, 2 years left, and then he sat out a whole year. He loses the bargaining chip. I like what Adam Schefter said, that there's a real chance that he might play only half the season because he doesn't want to put that work on him. If I'm the Steelers and I'm thinking that this guy's done next year, you know what I'm going to do? Run him every single opportunity. I'm not letting him sit because I don't care. I don't care if he takes beatings because he's not back next year. I'm not worried about his long-term use for the team. And I know that's very cold, but that's the way an NFL team is going to look at it.
Well, and that's why, for me, I'm going to throw this out there. This is a thought I had. It's not going to happen. I'm just going to say that right now. It is not going to happen. If we were talking NBA, it would totally happen, but we just don't see this very often in the NFL. If you're the Steelers, let's say it does get to that hypothetically, where Le'Veon Bell's like, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to play the first half of the year, which basically, if he went half of the games, their first 8 games, he's coming back week 10 because they're bye is week 7. Or if he only wants to sit out 6, I'll sit out the first 6 games. I'll come back week 8 against Cleveland. That's kind of what you can think about if he's going towards that maybe halfway through the season. My question that I had in my head after Le'Veon was like, hey, we ain't getting a deal done, there's no long-term deal. If you know right away, if the agent comes out and says 2018 is most likely his last, if you're the Steelers, should you be thinking, hey, you know what? If it gets towards the trade deadline or even before the trade deadline, because it's a tricky situation of, yes, he can help you win this year, but do you kind of do an NBA model of things that we always see where a team goes, hey, we're going to lose this guy at the end of the year. Let's try to trade him to another team so that we at least get something out of him.
Which is fair if you really don't think he's going to play.
Because you could maybe get a first-round pick for Le'Veon Bell.
I wouldn't give up a first round for him.
I think there's a team that would at least give you a first-round pick for this year.
I mean, if you had a team that was in the playoff hunt and, you know, let's just put it out there, if the Green Bay Packers are in the playoff hunt, they're winning a lot of games, but
and they need a running back.
Running game is awful. And I know people got a little bit, not angry at us, but they were like, you guys are discounting their run game a little bit. I don't think so, but let's say that's the case. They could go and get it. And they could say, sure, fine, we'll give you a first-rounder. We don't care. I believe they have 2 first-rounders, the Packers in particular. This is not really relevant because they got one from the Saints, I think. But they, I might just be making that up. I don't know.
I'm fact-checking.
Yeah, but, you know, that's a team that could go for it. And it's any team that could go for it, sure. But the Steelers are going to be in the playoff race. They're not going to want to trade Le'Veon Bell to a team that's going to potentially go up against them.
And that's the tricky thing of, yes, you are right. They do have the Saints, the Packers
there you go. I thought so.
Have the Saints first rounder this upcoming year. That was in the trade with when the Saints moved up, I believe, for Marcus Davenport.
Yeah.
That was in that deal. Also, first round pick, which became Rashad Penny, was in that deal as well. But the thing with Le'Veon is, yes, that's the tricky part is, because you're the Steelers, you're going to be, in my mind, 1 or 2 in this conference, maybe 3, depending on how the Jaguars, who we'll get to later in this podcast, you're going to be one of the top 2, maybe 3 teams in the AFC. Most people are expecting Patriots and Steelers
at the very
top
least,
of the AFC.
You're in the playoffs.
Exactly. Most people are picking them to win their division, which is an instant playoff berth. The thing that I wonder, though, is what's going to be more important in your mind? Because it all comes down to what is Le'Veon thinking.
Yeah.
Is there any way to win him back? If not, I would kind of sit there and go, hey, you know what? If this guy's going to walk, it might not matter what happens in the playoffs because he's going to walk. We get left with nothing. I would go ahead and if it was me and he's sitting out, or even if he's playing, if I'm the Steelers, I look to trade him around week 7, week 8, because I'd rather get something for him than just let him walk. I
completely agree. It's just not a very NFL type of move.
It's a very NBA move.
You know, and maybe someone wants to say, well, they did draft Mason Rudolph, so maybe they are looking into the future. But you know, you only got Big Ben for 1 or 2 more years because he is himself 2 years in a row contemplated retirement.
And that's another thing, because I tweeted yesterday when the long-term deal was not going to happen. I said, hey, this might sound like an overreaction, but mark this day down in the history books, July 16th, 2018. Basically, it is the beginning of the end of the Killer Bees' success in Pittsburgh, because this will probably be the last year they're all 3 together. Then after this year, how I'm looking at it, it's basically Big Ben, who has said he wants to play a couple more years, but if Le'Veon leaves and he goes, hey, you know what? This team doesn't have as many weapons as I would like. I'm just going to leave and save my body and not have to deal with this anymore. And then if you're the Steelers, you're stuck with, and I say stuck with, and it's not like, oh, he's bad, but like you're stuck with just Antonio Brown, and one player, one wide receiver is not going to win you a Super Bowl in the NFL. It takes a team. So Le'Veon leaves, Big Ben leaves.
Well, it's
Steelers
tough
have
because,
a problem.
You know, we talk about how Steelers are an obvious way into the playoffs, but almost 1,300 yards came from Le'Veon Bell last year. That is nothing to just kind of be like, oh, yeah, we'll replace it.
He had
not replacing that.
1,291 yards. And for the touchdowns, receiving he had 2, but on the ground he had 9 touchdowns last year.
Now, you miss out on that, and that could be a thing that loses you a few games, sure. But if I'm looking at this Le'Veon Bell standpoint, and the reason why the real answer to the question is, of course he's going to play this year for the Steelers.
Do you think he plays game 1? Do you think it's more like...
I do.
Do you think it's more like last year, which I heard that's what his agent was kind of hinting at, is he's not going to play training camp or the preseason, but he'll play week 1.
Which is what I would expect, and here's kind of why. We always say that when players have that contract year, they play big.
They blow up.
This is the contract year for, it's been really, but this is a huge contract year for Le'Veon Bell because anybody has a chance at him next year. And there are some teams, I'm going to say at Cleveland, San Francisco, the New York Jets, teams that have a lot of money to spend. Now, there are certain teams where you might argue, well, Cleveland might not really need that, but anybody could use Le'Veon Bell, sure. These teams are going to have money to pay. They're going to be willing to go out there, and Le'Veon Bell's deal was averaging to about $15 million a year, and that wasn't enough. So there's no way that the Steelers are going to get him back next year. Someone's going to have to pony up and pay huge for Le'Veon Bell because what is he? An elite offensive weapon.
Well, and that's the big thing with this deal where why one didn't get done is because from I was hearing is basically the Steelers were saying, hey, you're a running back. This is where your price point is. And Le'Veon Bell goes, oh, no. I do a lot more than just what a running back does. I'm an offensive weapon. I want to get paid more closer to not the exact amount, but he wanted money that would be closer to almost a wide receiver type of deal. Like he's looking at these wide receivers that are getting big deals, and he wanted a deal that isn't exactly the same amount, but also he wanted a little bit higher. Also, a big thing that was a hang-up that I was hearing from like NFL Live is that he wanted a ton of, like the one part that was important to him was guaranteed money. And I guess the Steelers weren't going to give him the amount that he wanted. Because it was when I was listening to, I think it was Louis Riddick today, he was saying that, like, well, yeah, that guaranteed money's important because if you get injured, if it ain't guaranteed, like, it don't matter how much money the contract is if it's not guaranteed. So he wanted that guaranteed, and the Steelers weren't going to give him what he wanted there. And I started to think immediately what teams could go after Le'Veon next year. And these are kind of the few. We'll kind of branch off into this discussion. Here's some of the teams that I thought could go after Le'Veon. Because for me, there's almost every team in the NFL. There's a few that'll be like, now we're like the Rams, now we're good. We got Todd Gurley. The Cowboys, now we're good. We got Ezekiel Elliott. Jaguars, we got Leonard Fournette. But there are a lot of teams that are going to say, let's just throw a deal at him, see if he comes. The thing that I would say for Le'Veon is, unless you're a playoff contender and a serious playoff contender, he ain't going to go there. So, like, teams like the Jets, the Dolphins, the Raiders in my mind, no chance. Not a chance. He ain't going there. So I looked at it, and these were some of the teams I was thinking about. First off, the Ravens. That'd be a very interesting divisional team. They're right now on the cusp. If they got a for-sure star running back, maybe that could push them over the edge. The Denver Broncos, depending on how they do this year. Case Keenum will still be the quarterback next year. That defense is still going to be a really good defense next year. They could really use a running back. I look at the Detroit Lions. Will they finally pony up and get a premier running back to help out Matthew Stafford in that offense? And then the other team that I thought of was the San Francisco 49ers. I know they just got Jerick McKinnon this past offseason, but who would you rather have, Le'Veon Bell or Jerick McKinnon? I'll go Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell's definitely the bigger deal there. Here's the thing that I think I would be worried about on Le'Veon Bell's standpoint before I get into these teams and add one to the list, is that if I'm the Steelers and I know I'm not getting him back, I know I already made this point, but
just trade him.
No, I'm not going to trade him. I'm going to say, fine, we're going to get everything we can out of you. if you're showing up, we are running the ball more than any running back has ever ran the ball. Because I don't
Basically
care.
sabotaging him.
No, I'm not sabotaging him. I know the lifespan of what I get out of this player. I am getting everything out of him. And I don't care if he gets injured in that point. And me as a person, I do care. But I'm saying as a franchise owner, a head coach, whatever.
Morals come into that a little bit.
Yeah, but when you are one of these guys,
not very a moral
if
thing
your
to do.
team, yeah, but these are owners moral.
Oh, I know they're not, but I mean, to me, I would figure
the
that's
coaches,
kind of a
the GM?
shitty thing to do.
They're shitty people half the time, right?
I know that. I'm just saying, like,
But that's
the
my
part
point.
of I don't care about your health would be very shitty on the owner's part.
I don't think the NFL gives a shit about any of their health.
I know.
As much as they want to say we care,
It's all about that dollar.
we care
bill.
as long as you don't mention the word CTE.
It's all about that dollar bill.
Now, anyways, if I'm one of these guys, I'm saying I'm getting absolutely everything I can out of you. You know, almost 1,300 wasn't enough. Let's get 1,500 this time. You know, I want everything you can get because I want you, and I know that you're going to play hard because you want that new deal, right? And you're not getting it from us, you're getting it from someone else. We don't care. Now, that has the ability to, of course, scare teams off of, man, that's a lot of miles on this guy, or maybe he gets hurt, something like that. So that's risky for Le'Veon Bell, although it's actually potentially going to be a better thing for him if that,
because
not
if
that
he
gets
performs
hurt.
well with it, he can get the deal he wants.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing, though, for Le'Veon. The one team I want to add to that list, and I really
Can
think...
I take a guess at what team it is?
Sure.
AFC or NFC?
It's in the AFC.
In the AFC?
Yep.
I'm going to say the Chiefs. No, not
Nope.
the Chiefs. The Bengals.
Nope. Right division, though, the Browns. And I don't think he goes to the Bengals. They've got Joe Mixon. They like Joe Mixon.
The Browns are interesting, though, because, like, I mentioned the 49ers. Yeah, they just got Jerick McKinnon, but that's one back. The Browns just paid up, I'm going to say, for Carlos Hyde, and they drafted Nick Chubb. So what, you're going to add another...
But Nick Chubb is a different kind of guy than Le'Veon Bell.
So
those are two completely different running backs.
So would that become Le'Veon Bell's your main back, Nick Chubb's your backup, Carlos Hyde gets pushed?
I mean, you might even hope to have a Ingram and Kamara type of scenario here, but only you're kind of flipping the roles a little bit.
Because Carlos Hyde got a 3-year deal, so we would still have
I'm not
2
that
years.
worried about that.
Okay.
You know, I can make do with that or even get rid of him, trade him. Someone will take Carlos Hyde off my hands. I'm not that worried about Carlos Hyde. What I am worried about is the fact that I just drafted a rookie quarterback. I've got a better than everybody thinks defense. I have a lot of offensive weapons. You know what? I can take a shot at this guy because what model am I following? The Seahawks, the Rams. I'm following the Chicago Bears method right now. I am following that young player. Let's make it happen. You know, there are, like, San Francisco still has money, but San Francisco still has things they need to fill as well. And they already paid their quarterback. That's one reason why, even though I think San Francisco makes a lot of sense, the Ravens will possibly work as well because Joe Flacco is going to not be there for that long.
Not only
then you
that,
have a good defense, young rookie quarterback. You just got a nice offensive weapon as well.
Not only that, but if he is if he's got a little, what's the phrase I'm looking for? If he just wants to stick it to the Steelers.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up next. We're missing that part.
To say, it's kind of like, what was it, Des Bryant? That's like, I want to go to someone in the division because I want to play you twice a year.
Well, I mean, why did Richard Sherman go from Seattle to San Francisco? Because Seattle lost their way, and now he's over here.
And he wants to see him twice a year and show him up.
You know, and it could go with the Browns, it could go with the Ravens either way. The Ravens are a little bit more of that more recent rivalry for sure. But I think either one would work, and either one's a good team. The reason I lean a little bit more to the Browns personally than the Ravens are that we don't really know when Joe Flacco is gone and when this guy's taking over.
But even I feel like Lamar Jackson is a smooth transition over to them still being successful. And if you give him a running back like Le'Veon Bell, that would be nice.
I think you give Baker Mayfield a running back like Le'Veon Bell, and you're going to get
nice
pretty much the same thing.
Here's the question I want to ask is, let's say Le'Veon sits out the first 8 games because half the season, 8 games. So let's say he sits out the first 9 weeks because of their bye.
Sure.
You give me what you think the wins and losses become if Le'Veon sits out all 8 of those games. Because I'll be honest, with Le'Veon, I had this team 10-0 to start the year. 10-0 with the team and with the schedule. That may change. I'll let you go first. What's your win-losses if Le'Veon sits out the first 8?
Let's see. I would still think they can beat the Browns, even though I think that's a toss-up. Honestly, with Le'Veon Bell, I think that's an upset potential game. The Chiefs, I'm going to lean towards the Chiefs if we're going to buy into this Patrick Mahomes hype. I'm going to lean into that one a little bit. Buccaneers, I don't think so. Ravens, it's a home game, so maybe they'll steal it from you. That's a good defense. But still, that one where I would feel kind of confident on the split, now I'm like, I don't know. Ravens could steal it, and they could sweep it. Falcons, I like the Falcons. I'm going to give this one to the Falcons. Bengals, no. And then Browns, let's see, is Browns week 7 or that is week 8?
Week 8.
Then Browns, maybe I'll let them split it with the Browns because, like I said, I think that first game could be an upset. But really, I think this team is 5-3.
So, like I said, I had them 10-0 with Le'Veon game 1. That's just how I see the Steelers team. I think is going to be really good this year. Without Le'Veon, for the first, I'll even go a step further.
And let's remember, this was a 13-3 team last year. They were already really good.
I'll say this because for our prediction video, Sean has them. This team, right now, I have them at 14-2. Like, that is how good I think the Steelers will be. However, without Le'Veon, those first 8, I got them losing to the Browns. I know people are going to be like, Ricky, they're the Browns. This team will come out and shock them. And if the Steelers don't have a consistent rushing attack, the Browns will make them pay.
Well, the Browns are not that bad of a team right now.
What the Browns will do, in my mind, if you don't have Le'Veon out there to take pressure off, hey, we're just going to let our pass rushers pin those ears back and go right after Big Ben. Make him beat you. And if they're constantly blitzing and you don't have a running game to kind of take that off, that could be a problem. Chiefs, I'm going to still say the Steelers because Patrick Mahomes is young, plus it's in Pittsburgh. If that was in Arrowhead, that would be a different situation.
I just think those first 2 games have upset potential.
They do. Like the Chiefs, it's not like a for sure loss. I'm just leaning into the Steelers because it's in Pittsburgh. And if I'm looking at the quarterbacks, veteran Big Ben over sophomore Mahomes, I'm going to go with Big Ben. Then the Buccaneers, they don't have Jameis Winston. They don't have a chance of winning that game. Then the Ravens, I'll give the Steelers the win at home. Then Falcons is a loss. Bengals is a loss. Browns, you'll beat them coming off of your bye. And then the Ravens will beat you. So my 10-0 to start the year just became what? You take away 4 of them, they're now 6-4. And overall, they went from 14-2 to 10-6, which would drop them. They're no longer, I think, one of the top 2. Yeah, they went from being the number 1 seed in the AFC at 14-2 to being the 4th seed playing wild card weekend at 10-6.
Funny that you have them at 10-6. I had them. I had them kind of debating between 11-5 and 10-6 at the moment where it stands. A lot is going to change. And then that maybe drops them at the worst to like a 9-7, but I still think 10-6. Some of those losses I talked about were still things that I could see happening even with Le'Veon Bell because, like I said, Browns, I just see it as
they're
upset
be
potential.
This year.
Chiefs is another potential upset one. The Ravens is just interesting on the split that I think is going to happen. I can see the Bengals coming out because I don't think the Bengals are actually going to be that bad this year. And I'm going to be talking about the Bengals in the near future.
Yeah.
But I do not think the Bengals are going to be a bad team this year. Now, I do think that Le'Veon Bell, whether he's there, and I do think he will be there the whole season, or if he takes off part of the games, he's got to play at least 6 games. And he's going to lose money if he only plays 6. So he's going to be playing games. I definitely kind of feel that with or without him, this 13-3 team is still going to go out there and win games. They're still going to be in the playoffs. It doesn't matter. But they still have tough competition. And with or without him, that's going to be the case because the Ravens are a good team. The Bengals are better this year. The Browns are we say it all the time, but at least on paper, the Browns are a better team this year as well.
They should be a lot better. I still think Browns are going to Browns.
It's the quarterback situation right now. There's a lot of mystery right there.
I want to support Hugh Jackson, but let's be honest, the track record's not there. And honestly,
1-31.
If you can't get some wins this year, I was even listening to a podcast where they said 5 to 6 wins or we fire Hugh Jackson this year is what
then
they were
you should have done
for.
it at 016.
Then you should have done it last year is basically what I'm thinking. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How many games does Le'Veon play this year? I think even if he does sit out half the year, teams are going to want to give him the money next year just because of what kind of a running back
he's got less mileage on him then.
That too. And he's a running back that's under 30, so you give him a 4-year contract. That would be good enough to, boom, he's 30 at the end of that contract. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What do you think about Le'Veon? Will he sit out? What do you think of him maybe not being a Steeler next year? Let us know what you think in that comment section down below.